It always has the undercurrent of like the movie The Lion King, where the voice from the sky says, "Remember," the James Earl Jones, "Remember," Simba, "Remember," like remember who you are. That's the undercurrent. That's the focal point of everything, every single spiritual practice, every ounce of energy, and every speck of devotion goes towards that remembrance. And for myself, it was making contact with guidance. That's an interesting concept as well, because there are some non-dual pathways to source and to self that can really have you watch your thoughts, inquire about who is the I, like with Ramana's pathway, but I'm going to present to you kind of a map of the mind and a map of consciousness that may serve you in this spiritual awakening, because it has different nuances and different aspects to it, and yet I found it very relatable, having come through undergrad and grad with psychology background. The course uses psychology terms, Christian terminology, and educational terminology, but I was most fascinated with consciousness. I was like, okay, Jesus, please instruct me on what's actually seeming to happen in my mind, so I can use what you're going to teach me as a tool to clear my mind in a faster way. That's basically what it was for me. Jenny and Greg spoke earlier. They were talking about perception, and perception might be equated with consciousness as well. That when you look at the world, this perceptual world of time and space and images and sights and sounds and colors and shapes, this perceptual world is you could say a motion picture of consciousness. So if you know that consciousness is the domain of the ego and you're looking at the world, you're looking at a motion picture of consciousness. A motion picture of the ego. The ego has projected this linear world, this cosmos of time and space. Interesting, different from what I was raised with in Christianity. God created the heavens and the earth, and it talks about resting on the seventh day, and then it's like, wait a minute, you're telling me that God is the creator of the heavens and spirit and love and light, and the ego projected time and space. Okay. That's an interesting metaphysical distinction off the bat. But that's also why consciousness is the domain of the ego, because of all the levels and all of the different distortions. Everything, you might even say even in science, some of you who are familiar with science know the concept of entropy, that everything in the cosmos is like moving toward destruction, is what entropy is. And it's no wonder, because the ego is the sponsor and the ego is behind it. It would be strange if God created the cosmos and then suddenly there's entropy. Oh shucks, what went wrong? It said in the Bible that God created and then everything God looked on was good. Entropy doesn't really fit in well with the good part, The scientists are saying it's destruction, but from a sense that the ego projected it, then it's like, oh, entropy fits right in there. Like, well, of course. A death wish, like the ego, a substitute identity for what is real and true, that's what produces destruction. Okay, that makes sense. And so you might say that the purification of consciousness is to disidentify from the false, or the ego, disidentify from the death wish, and identify with the source. the love, the light, the abstraction, the joy, the happiness. That's the whole point of spiritual awakening, is to know thyself and identify with what is real and true. So the Course, I find, has been a very, very helpful mind training tool, mind training device. And then I found in my life, as I got happier and happier and happier, and really consistently happy and joyful, then they always say like attracts like, so I started to have people wanting to live with me, move in near me, move in down the street. It's like it draws forth witnesses. Happiness draws forth witnesses of itself. A happy state of mind draws forth happy witnesses, happy people, happy dogs, happy cats, happy butterflies, bees, everything, even flies. One time I was down in Australia with my friend Kirsten, and I was in the chair and she was over on a couch, and we were meditating, and this fly got into the room, and the fly kept buzzing around her head and everything, and zooming around and everything, and I looked over, I could see her eye. She was eyeing the fly. And this went on for like 5 minutes, and finally there was a piece of paper there, and she just rolled it up into like a fly swatter to like club the fly. And then the fly flew across over to where I was sitting and just sat right here, and then turned and looked at me. Do you believe that? She's meditating with what happened to peace and love and joy for all sentient beings and everything. I'm sharing the space here. I'm just fanning her and keeping her cool. And she saw it too. She looked over at me, and then she looked over, and she was eye to eye with the fly. As the fly was turned, just looking at her. But it's all just symbols. Everything in time and space is just a motion picture of our mind, so it's just a symbol of what's going on in the mind. And even if it's a little bit of irritation or annoyance, that's still coming from the ego. It's not coming from the source. So we're here for a purification. When I use the Course, and I really let it kind of really clean out my mind and empty self-concepts and identifications, and suck the pride out of the mind, and suck the arrogance out, and there was a lot to suck out of it, really, actually, because I've been 10 years at university, undergrad and grad school, so there was a lot of monkey mind going on there, and a lot of need for emptiness in a huge way. And so, as I got into that, then the more I got into just being, like Eric was just saying, in the rhythm of the soul. The more I got into the rhythm of the soul and in alignment and congruent with love and light and spirit, then the fruits of the Spirit would come through in all kinds of ways. I would be doing gatherings around the United States, and then around Canada, then I was doing world tours and zipping around on 6 different continents, and just being used to basically be, you could say, almost like a channel of spirit in terms of the words, and a demonstration of spirit in terms of the lightness, the humor, the laughter, all the things that you would expect to be the fruits of the Spirit, kind of pouring through me, and going to all these different countries, and just shining and sharing and hugging and laughing, and using all kinds of examples and metaphors, and teaching metaphysics, but also teaching practical application of those metaphysics. And so there was a lot of that going on, and it was a huge amount of travel that went on for quite a few years. And then also things started to come where Spirit was using music more and more in my gatherings, satsangs, in different types of presentation. Just in my daily life, I was just surrounded by amazing music. And then when I would travel, I would have amazing musicians that would show up, and like Eric, we heard tonight, as an example, where we those things would just be given almost like props for sharing the love and the light. And then when I went to countries where I didn't speak the language, then translators would show up. The first time I went to Argentina, a close friend of mine had said, "You are going to have a big problem in Argentina." And I said, "What is the big problem?" And she said, "Yeah, you speak English and they speak Spanish, and that's a big problem." But when I got down there for like 2 weeks, there was about 14 amazing translators that were just sent in. Just like the singer-songwriters, the Spirit sent translators in, and everything that I would seem to need was given. I also started using Hollywood movies because Jesus taught in parables, so I thought, well, Hollywood movies are like modern-day parables. I don't have to come up with, there was a man who had 2 sons and all that old stuff. It's already been done. And then I thought, I don't know if I can come up with Jesus, all these parables. And there's plenty of parables. Hollywood keeps cranking them out. Hollywood, Bollywood, no shortage of parables. There's plenty of parables. So I started to show movies. And I remember I was teaching down in Cali, Colombia, and I was down in this huge building in the large city of Cali, and people would tell me, "Why don't you show The Matrix?" Or there was that movie, a quantum physics movie, "What the bleep do we know?" And so for most of the major Hollywood movies, it was no problem getting the Spanish translation, the subtitles and everything. With What the Bleep, I had brought the producer of What the Bleep had been on a talk show that I was on here in California and down in Santa Barbara, and so I got an advanced copy, but I took it down to Colombia and I thought, I'll show this quantum physics movie, they'll love that, but it doesn't have Spanish subtitles, it was an advanced copy. So I got another copy, and I went to the theater to show it. I announced the movie, and it wouldn't play. It wouldn't play, and I was like, So the Spirit just prompted me, does anybody in the audience here happen to have a spare copy of What the Bleep Do We Know? As I'm down in Cali, Colombia, and there a hand goes up. Somebody had just bought it at the store, and it was still in the bag. I got it! Wow. That's what I mean, the Spirit it's just all symbols, so the world will say, that's the synchronicity. Well, it just happens that way, whatever you seem to need. And when I first went to Colombia, too, I remember using The Matrix movie, and I just would work with a friend I was staying with, and I would tell him where to pause the DVD. Nowadays, there's lots of more higher tech stuff. This was back, this is dating me, but this was back in the day of DVDs, as they say in Australia, day by days. So I'd say, pause it at this point, this point, this point, this point, and I would do teachings that would pour through me from the Spirit, pausing the movie. And I was like, wow, this is really cool. Because people were receptive. I mean, I showed, I think, Eternal Sunshine, The Spotless Mind, and I demystified relationships. I took all of the complexities the ego projects onto human relationships, and I lifted all of them off using Eternal Sunshine and The Spotless Mind with Kate Winslet. And then I could see young couples in the audience that were just kind of looking at each other during and after the movie like, oh, our relationship is never going to be the same. Because when you start to demystify and expose the ego dynamics and the mirroring that goes on, and how helpful the mirroring can be if you use it in a helpful way, you don't get caught in the projections. You actually look closer inside to see what is it that I believe, what are the thoughts that are making the projection, and then you can let them go. So the young couples were like, looked like it was Valentine's Day, a metaphysical Valentine's Day, because there was so much freedom that came just from starting to understand what's going on